As you board, please move across your car to make room for everyone, and kindly offer available seating to those needing special assistance. If you're standing, please hold on to the handrails and stay clear of the doors. They will be closing in a moment. Thank you.
Hey, howdy, hey, and welcome to another episode of Disney Assembled. I'm Troy.
And I'm Mimi.
And we are your happy little father-daughter podcast, here to create some joy and share our love for all things Disney. So, Mimi, in this week's episode, we're going to talk about what makes Disney so magical, and we're going to share our thoughts about the most magical attractions at Disneyland in California. But before we do that, I believe we have a new review on Apple Podcasts to share, don't we?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so it comes to us from MD80 and it's captioned father-daughter combos. There's a ... following it, but I don't know how to read the full title, so we're just going to end it with combos. Anyway, the review reads, from fun stories, entertaining discussions, and just overall Disney love, we really enjoy listening to this podcast. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. So thank you for leaving us that super, super nice review.
Yeah, thanks a lot, MD80. We really do appreciate that. And for those of you who are listening out there, if you'd like to share a 5-star rating and write a review on Apple Podcasts, we'd be happy to read yours on the air as well. So thank you for that great review, MD80. So the topic of this week's discussion is what makes Disney so magical, and also our ideas about what the most magical attractions are at Disneyland in California. But before we jump into our thoughts, Mimi, I thought we should share also what some of our followers in our social media networks share with us, because we put the question out there about what makes Disney so magical, and we did get some responses from a few people. And so let's go over those. So on Twitter, we got a response from Sean Ranks the Mouse, and the Twitter handle is @RankingTheMouse. And I should say this up front. Ranking the Mouse has a YouTube channel, good YouTube channel. If you haven't checked them out on YouTube, please do so. But Sean Ranks the Mouse says this: for me, it's the storytelling, thematic depth, and nostalgia, led especially by the thematic depth. There's also a touch of magic that can't really be described by any one statement or word, like character meet and greets and the like. So, Sean Ranks the Mouse @Ranking the Mouse on Twitter. Thanks for sharing your response to what makes Disney so magical. We also had a few on our Instagram that responded also, Mimi. So why don't you share that with our listeners?
So the Year of Disneyland Travels wrote all of the kindness, and I have to agree, it's a very calming and kind atmosphere. And then Disney Magic Dad wrote, I believe it's Walt's spirit, which leads to attention to detail. That's why I believe Disneyland has just a bit more magic than Walt Disney World.
Yeah, and on our Instagram stories, we actually put the question out as well. And we got one more response. This one was from @DisneyDependent, who puts out a really good podcast as well. So check out Disney Dependent Podcast. And they wrote literally everything, ! And I have to tell you, these are all really good responses. And I would tend to agree with them, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So when it comes to Disney magic, I think all those things are really important. The kindness, the atmosphere, the storytelling, the attention to details, right? Those little minute details that go a long way. But really how the cast members at Disney parks interact with the guests to make them feel so special. And I know when we had Danny on our show a few weeks back, he went into some of that as well about what makes Disney so magical is really that cast member, the kindnesses and the pluses that they show. but also all the work that goes into the different attractions. So in today's episode, Mimi, I thought you and I would have a conversation about what we felt the most magical attractions are at Disneyland, sort of according to that same criteria that our followers on social media share with us, either through Twitter or Instagram. So we should do that. We should have that conversation. But before we do, unfortunately, we do have the Disney dad joke of the week. And double unfortunate, I am the one who came up with this week's joke. And so we can't blame anyone else for sharing it with us. So are you ready for this week's Disney's dad joke of the week?
Yeah.
All right, here it is.
Boy,
Did you hear about Gaston's big award?
No.
He won the Nobel Prize.
Wait, that's a good one.
Right.
I
So
like that one.
I got a little chuckle there. So that's this week's Disney dad joke of the week. If you have a Disney dad joke of the week that you'd like to share with us, please contact us and submit it. And that way we can share it on the air. We'll give you credit for it. So Mimi, why don't you share with our listeners how they can contact us if they have a Disney dad joke to share?
They can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at Disney Assembled, or they can send us an email, disneyassembled@gmail.com.
Excellent. And do we have any flash news this week? I know last week we tried to do the flash news or the newsy news of the week. I think we have a couple of things that we remembered.
Yeah, we have a few things.
All right.
So the first one is the Mulan movie that was scheduled to come out in like April or May. Has been rescheduled into some random indefinite date. Like we don't have any specific date for the release of that movie. And then Black Widow is apparently still on track for its November 6th, 2020 rescheduled release date from its original one in May. So that's still on schedule. So yeah, and then the Oogie Boogie Bash in Disneyland has been canceled. So if you're looking forward to going to that, don't. So yeah, I think that's everything.
Yeah, those are
Galaxy's Edge merch has been moved to Target. I don't know why.
Sure, Galaxy's Edge merch. I think they're starting to sell some of it at Target to maybe make up some of the revenue that was lost from the parks not being open. And the only other news I remember would be Disney World refining their mask rule. And so the mask rule being that you can only take it off if you're eating, drinking, or in one of those rest stations, but people were walking around eating and drinking. So they've made a new rule that you can't walk around holding food or drink with your mask down, pretending that you're eating or drinking. That if you're eating or drinking, you have to be sitting or standing still. You remove the mask, you do what you got to do. But if you're moving around, you have to be wearing the mask. So in other words, can't walk and eat at the same time. Can't walk and drink at the same time. So there you go. That's the Disney news that we have for you this week. We are not a Disney news podcast per se, so there are plenty of really good podcasts out there that specialize in the news. Check them out. But with that, let's jump into our topic for today, which is the most magical attractions at Disneyland, California.
Yep. So
would you like to start by maybe mentioning one of the attractions that stands out in your mind as being among the more magical according to the descriptions that we had earlier in the show?
I think the Radiator Springs Racers do a really good job of not necessarily like creating magic, because the whole thing is like, I don't know. Little brother was obsessed with cars, absolutely obsessed with it. And so when we walked into, that Cars Land area, you're immediately engulfed in it. And the Radiator Springs Racers are unlike the other attractions in that area. It's not necessarily more mature, but it's aimed at like older audiences, and it's really well themed and really well done. And I just think the Radiator Springs Racers do a really good job.
Right. And when we mentioned at the front end, Disneyland, California, we're also going to be including California Adventures in that as well, since they're right across the road from each other. So I would agree with you. Radiator Springs area in Disney California Adventures is very, very well themed. It is extremely immersive. And when you are there, you truly feel like you're in Radiator Springs.
Yeah, the only real complaint that I would say about it is the queues on some of their rides are like compact, but like what can you do, right? Like, so
Right. No, I would agree with you. I think that's a good way to start. So my first one of among the most magical places in Disneyland, California, or Disney's California Adventures, I'm going to just mention Main Street, like the entire Main Street area when you walk into the park. I think is strikes most people as their immediate immersion into the world of Disney. And if I had to point out a couple of things to sort of, be reasons why I think Main Street is, among the most magical places in Disneyland, California. First would be the scale of the buildings. If you notice when you walk around, a lot of attention was to detail was given so that children could see inside the buildings in through the windows to see what was going on. As a matter of fact, story goes that when Walt was walking around the property while it was being built, he would often get down on his knees and move around to be at a child's height so that the people building Main Street were putting the windows at a level that children could see into, which was really cool. We've also talked about before one of our first episodes, maybe in our very first episode, we talked about the magical window displays in the
Yeah.
Emporium, right? Where the different scenes of the movies change. There were like 6 different films represented there. I think that's a great piece of magic for Disneyland. And if I had to mention one more thing about Main Street, I think really stands out, it would have to be the light that stays on in Walt's apartment above the fire station in on Main Street. And the fact that that light is on, and when you walk by and you look at it, it really gives you that nostalgic feeling that this was the park that Walt built, and it makes it really, really special. And I think it really lends itself to an extremely magical moment for people visiting that park.
Yeah.
So,
Like, I don't have as deep of a connection to, like, Walt and the classics. Like, I'm still connected to them and I still admire them dearly because they built the company. But, like, for me, Disney is more about, like, indulging in your childhood and just being a kid and celebrating life and how beautiful it is. And so, like, I know a lot of people feel really connected to Walt and find that really, really important. To me, that aspect isn't as important, but it is still there. And so I admire the light that is always on in Main Street, but for me, it doesn't create as much magic as, like, say, I don't know, a parade or a smell or a certain, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like,
sure.
it's just different for me. I don't really know why. I think that's just maybe it's like the generation I'm growing up in, but I'm less connected to Walt than I am, something else.
Right.
Which is it's sad because it shows that time takes a toll on things that are really important,
Mhm.
and Walt is still very important. Okay, he built the company. Like, I would not be like who I am without Disney. It's just harder. I don't really know how to explain it. Like, I feel more connected to the newer um aspects of the company as opposed to the more classic Main Street type thing.
Right. No, I think that's a good part of this conversation we have every week, though, is because your perspective as a teenager and my perspective as an almost 50-year-old father are going to be different sometimes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we have a right or wrong opinion. It's just that we have a different opinion on things. And I think your perspective on how, Walt's influence on Disneyland is a little bit different than mine because I did grow up watching The Wonderful World of Disney on TV. I
Right.
remember
Like,
seeing Walt Disney on
the
television.
movies and shows that I'm watching are not the ones that he created.
Right, right,
And so it's harder for me to be connected to that.
right.
He did not write Tangled. He did not build my childhood. Granted, he planted the seeds that led to it, but he did not write it. And so it's harder to be connected in that way.
Sure. I can understand that. So, do you have another example of something in that area that does seem to be a great example of that Disney magic in your mind?
Well, I like the colors and everything is so vibrant there. Like, you don't it's very non-judgmental. It's more of like an atmosphere, I guess. Like, Main Street has this atmosphere where it's like you are here, you are safe, you're happy, and you don't have to grow up too fast. I
Right.
can turn around the corner and Rapunzel could be standing right there, and I could totally geek out, and no one's gonna say a word.
And each of the lands in and of themselves are an attraction just walking through it.
Right, exactly. Like Tomorrowland and Fantasyland probably are one. Tomorrowland is so magical to me. I don't know how to explain it. It's just the way that they themed it is just unlike any of the other lands. I think in Disney World, like in Disneyland, I mean, Fantasyland is super great. It's super well themed, but it's where they threw all their Princess Dark ride attractions. And Frontierland is also very well crafted, but it's smaller, and so is Critter Country. And New Orleans Square is a lot of food. But whereas Tomorrowland, the architecture and the ground and the smell and that it's like walking into its own separate little thing. Like I can block out Tomorrowland from the rest of the park and it feels so different.
And I think what you're referring to is something that maybe I think Sean from at Ranking the Mouse, we talked about his comment earlier, the depth of the themes.
Yes.
So when you talk about the colors and the smells, it's sort of what I was talking about, the attention to the detail, right? So the
Right.
lighting, the
It's its
colors.
own little bubble, and I find Tomorrowland
Right.
to be, I don't know. I think theming space is a lot easier than theming, New Orleans Square or Fantasyland. But like the ones that stick out are the ones that are themed really well, like Tomorrowland and Frontierland.
Well, I would agree with you. And I think there are
Does that
certain
make any sense? Like I feel like I just rambled,
no, you
but I couldn't
did.
even get my like point out. Like I'm totally missing
Well, I think we should
the
find your
point.
point together. I think this is a great opportunity for us to do that. So I'm gonna throw out an example to you of an attraction that I think is very immersive. The story is well done. The cast members play their role extremely well.
Hmm.
And I think this is an example of what you're talking about. So I'm going to talk about the Haunted Mansion,
Oh, that's a good one.
right? So before you even go in the Haunted Mansion, in the queue, I mean, how many times are you trying to read all the tombstones that are in
Oh,
the
every
yard,
time.
and the way that it's purposefully looks old and dungy and dirty, and the cobwebs, and how the character, not the characters, excuse me, the cast members that are in their costumes have sort of that really somber mansion
Yeah, like it's its
tone.
own thing. You could block it out from like you can look at a map of Disneyland and I can block out like mentally block out Haunted Mansion as its own little themed bubble.
Absolutely. And I think when you get in that queue and you get closer to getting on your doom buggy and going through that ride, you almost forget you're in a park with
Yes.
tons of other stuff.
Literally.
That all of a sudden you are completely immersed in that story. And to me, I think that's an example of what you were talking about earlier, which is all the little details and the sights and the sounds and the smells. I mean, there are sounds coming out of Haunted Mansion all the time that are kind of spooky and creaky and weird. And I think that's what we're talking about. So when we talk about a great example of a very magical example of a magical attraction at Disneyland, and it's the same at Disney World. I mean, the Haunted Mansion at
Right,
Disney World
yeah.
too. That's what I'm getting at here, which is it falls. It's a great example of the description that not only some of our followers share with us that we read at the beginning of the show, but what you and I have
Yeah.
already talked about, right? So I would say Haunted Mansion is on the list among the most magical
Yeah.
attractions,
And you
right?
had originally asked me about Main Street and what I found Main Street to be so magical. For you it was the architecture and Walt's office, but for me it's going back to the point I guess I was trying to make is it's the center hub for everything you could ever want. Anything you could ever want from Disney, all of your hopes, your dreams, childhood, adulthood, it's all there. And you can always link something back to Main Street. Like it all connects. And I like when things connect. I'm type A in that way. I like when they all meet. And so for me it's like it's magical because it's the doors to anything I could ever want.
Right, and you walk through and you walk by a popcorn stand, you can smell the popcorn, or you walk by the candy shop and it smells really sweet. You know,
Right.
make no mistake, they're pumping those smells out as well. It's
Oh,
not just the
no.
smell of the candy, and so it's those little details. So
And
let's recap for our listeners some of the things we've already said that we
yeah,
felt
I
were
kind of got
really.
off.
No, you didn't. This is great. This is exactly what we wanted to do. This is our conversation about this, where we discover this on our own. Our listeners who've been with us for a while know we're not reading off an outline here. I mean, this is
No, I'm
we
just
don't,
like talking.
we don't plan all of our talking points in advance, so we just come up with a topic and go with it. So, you know, we've talked about Radiator Springs, which I think is a great example. That was a great way to start. Thank you for that. We talked about Main Street and we brought up Haunted Mansion. So after seeing those or listening to those three, is there one that sort of pops in your head, an attraction that pops in your head that's an example of something that you feel is also extraordinarily immersive? I can think of one that I'm surprised you haven't said yet.
Pirates.
Okay, so tell our audience why you think Pirates
The whole time you were talking
is.
about Haunted Mansion, I was like, Pirates is the same way. And I didn't want to like interrupt you. Pirates, from the minute you walk in, is its own thing. It's unlike anything else at Disney because the movie was made after. They just made a pirate attraction because they felt like making a pirate attraction. Okay, so it's not even about Jack Sparrow. It's not even about that whole line of movies that were extraordinarily successful. It's about pirates, and pirates are happy-go-lucky and rebellious and fun and upbeat. And so you walk, but they're also kind of eerie, right?
Right.
It's something that's what I like personally in movies. I like something that's upbeat and fun, but it's also like scary and has this like mysterious mystery thing behind it,
Right.
like psychedelic horrors,
Right.
something like that. Anyway, so Pirates, literally from the minute you walk in, has its own sound and smell. And as soon as you walk out of it, it's gone. It just disappears. I don't know how to explain it.
Right.
You're walking into a force field and you walk in, you smell the water, and you're like happy because the water smells so good.
When there's a reason that ride stands the test of time. It's been there forever.
There's a reason the popular rides are popular.
Right. And I think part of, and I think you can make a couple of different arguments about Pirates here.
There's so many things to say about Pirates.
Well, there's an argument that can be made that because in California, the Pirates ride begins with you going through the bayou and the restaurant is over on the side and people eating at the restaurant kind of are part of that. There can be an argument made. I don't make this argument, but one could make the argument that breaks the story, that it's not you're seeing other guests eating in the restaurant as you're starting to ride sort of doesn't fit. But to me, I think what it does, it breaks Pirates into multiple stories. You have the beginning where you're floating through the bayou, and then you do that first waterfall, and then you're in the middle of the battle between the ships, and then you find the lost treasure, and then there is the pirates ransacking the town, and then you find where. So there are multiple stories being told throughout that ride.
Every time you ride it, you pick up on something new. It's hard to miss. I know in a lot of dark rides, you're like, it's the same ride every time and you don't really meet anything new. But in Pirates, you can interpret it in a different way every time. And I know I always do, which sounds like, I don't really know how to explain it. Like it's different every time. You can always take it in a different direction.
Absolutely.
And that, especially in the scene on the street, you can look at the women, you can look at the jail, you can look at the gun, you can look at the merchants. Like there's so much to see in the ride that it makes it so immersive. But not only is it incredibly detailed and well themed, and the music is everything, and it's just great, but it's everything I could ever want in a ride. It's dark, it's on a boat. It also has that kind of element of thrill, with the waterfalls. I know it's not Splash Mountain thrill, but if you've never ridden it before and you're just falling in the dark, you're terrified, right? And then the music is great. Like it's everything I could ever want in a ride or a movie, and it's stuffed right into Disneyland, which I think is what makes it so magical. It's literally everything. It's its own little thing. It's all the things that make Disney great in one ride.
I think it's a great example. So I have another example. Right? You brought up Pirates. I have an example of one that I think, and again, I'm kind of thinking of it that the whole thing is immersive, and when you're in it, you sort of forget everything else that's going on in the outside world.
Can I guess? Are you going to say space?
No, I'm not going to say that. Believe it or not, I don't think Space Mountain is not on my list of the most magical attractions. It's a great attraction.
It's a great attraction, but it's a lot of.
But it's not on my list of the most magical.
It's like sitting in the dark.
I'm going to go back to California Adventure, and I'm going to talk about Toy Story Mania.
That is such a good example.
I like Toy Story Mania.
That's a great one.
It's a different type of attraction because it's interactive.
Yeah.
And it's fun and it's a little competitive. but you are drawn in immediately to this
Gigantic
right
Mr.
this
Potato
game,
Head.
right? And you feel like you're part of that Toy Story world. I just think Toy Story
Yeah.
Man is a really magical attraction. I
The
think it's
boardwalk
great.
in general is really magical. Like, I think the boardwalk stands out. It's it's not super Disney. It's like it's a boardwalk. Okay? Like when you think of Disneyland, you don't think of a boardwalk. And I think it's kind of stands out, but it's also has this like appeal, because it's like your classic carnival games, but they're also Disney at the same time. So it's like I don't know,
Right.
just if that makes any sense.
No, I do. I think it makes a lot of sense. And
Toy Story Mania is a great example.
so I'm going to guess one that I think you may be thinking about. Okay.
Okay.
Because I think it's one that you have said that was really immersive. And I think it's a great example of how Disney does its magic. And you'll know what I'm talking about here in just a minute.
Mhm.
The Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my goodness, I could literally go on a rant.
Right.
Can I?
Well, you can go on a little rant.
It'll be little. Okay, so you walk in and the queue itself is like really boring until you get inside the actual tower, but then it's everything. The collectors, everything is there. The Figment is there. It's so good. And then you go into your little small groups and you break in and you get the pre-show. The pre-show with Rocket is so good. It's so well done. I absolutely love it. So you see him he doesn't look super real, like it's kind of strange, but whatever. The animatronic isn't super detailed, but like that's not important. You get the backstory, how they're captured by the collector, and then Rocket breaks out, and then if you wait, you get to see him take the Walkman with him because we got to bring the Walkman, and then you go through another queue. Wait, that most of that ride is just waiting in lines, but you forget about it because the queue is so amazing. So you leave your pre-show, and then you go into this like kind of basement area thing, like backstage area, and then you get in your elevator and then you do the ride, and it's so good. It's so well themed, and I know a lot of people don't really like it because it's not the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and I know the Tower of Terror, the original one, was super super detailed and amazing, but I love the Guardians of Galaxy interpretation. I just
Right.
think it's so good.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I think it should be on the list of the most magical attractions, because it wasn't originally, it was a totally different themed attraction. And then when it was changed,
It was still
there were a lot of
great.
people really upset that
No,
didn't
a lot
want
of
it
people were
changed.
mad, yeah.
But it has been done so well, and the attention to detail,
It's so hard to not like
that
it.
now it's like no one really even cares that it's not the same
That and
Tower
it's
of
the
Terror.
only real Marvel experience you're gonna get in Disneyland as of right now without Avengers Campus. And I think a lot of people were waiting on that kind of superhero thing, but they weren't expecting, to be taken away from a classic. But still, I think not only is it Marvel, it's incredibly detailed and the ride is fun. And I think that's what makes it so magical.
Fair enough. Couple
This
more.
entire episode is us talking about how detailed it is, and that's what makes it great.
But that's part of what the magic is. So the Disney magic is more than just, walking in with money and then magically all your money disappears at the end of your trip, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's that kind of magic, but this magic is more about the thematic elements, right? And the depth
like-
of the storytelling and the immersiveness that not just the attraction does, but also that the cast members participate in.
Yeah, like
right?
the skippers.
Well, there's another one for you.
The
So
Jungle Cruise
The Jungle
skippers.
Cruise. I mean, I think that would be on our list of among the most. Look, some
It's-
people don't like the Jungle Cruise. They think it's boring
I
and
love
hokey
the
and cheesy. But
Jungle Cruise.
it is immersive, and the
It's-
skippers are all into
And
it.
they're all different every time.
That's true.
You can get the same skipper like 3 times in a row, and the show will still be different.
Absolutely. So Jungle Cruise, does that make the list of our?
It does. You know what also meets the list? It's not a ride, but we did Jedi training last time we were there.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't like super immersive.
I don't know if they do that anymore.
I don't
We
know.
did it in 2017.
Maybe they just like moved it to like
I'm not
Galaxy's
sure.
Edge. I don't know, but it wasn't like super immersive, but it felt like you felt genuine. But like looking back at the videos, it's just us like fighting with a plastic lightsaber in the streets, but it felt
You can
real.
go to our
while you were doing
Instagram
it.
feed. You can see the video of Mimi
I
and
asked you
brother.
to take that down, but okay. It's just, it felt real. You got the robe thing, and you got a lightsaber, and you got to like beat up some bad guys, and then you got a little pin.
But it was fun.
It was fun.
And you felt like you were
And
really
it
accomplishing something.
spent a few hours, and then we ate some food and got on the Matterhorn. Like, it was great.
That's good.
It doesn't necessarily make the list, but it's like an honorable mention.
Well, I think you just mentioned the next one that I thought should be on a list of the most magical attractions at Disneyland, and that is the Matterhorn.
It'd be more magical if the ride wasn't so bumpy and I didn't get whiplash every time I went
I think
on
that's
it.
part of what makes it charming, is that it jolts you around and throws your back out if you're not sitting properly. And no, I think the fact that ride at the time it was built was so new.
Revolutionary.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, it's another one that has stood the test of time. And it's my favorite coaster ride at Disneyland is the
You
Matterhorn.
literally would not get on it.
This is my favorite. It is my favorite.
This is annoying.
Really close with Thunder Mountain being in there.
Those are the only two coasters you've been on.
No, I've been on Space Mountain.
No.
Yes, I have ridden Space Mountain.
Okay, well, you didn't ride it with us last time we were there.
No, I did not, but I have ridden Space Mountain before.
Okay.
All right, magical attractions. Any more that come to mind for you?
Are we going to talk about Small World? Should we bring it up?
Well, you already have. Go for it.
Okay, Small World. It's magical because it's iconic. It's just, personally, it's not my favorite ride. I get kind of bored halfway through it and just want to like get off, but I can't ever skip it. It's stuck in me. It's stuck in my head. It has this allure.
Well, the story behind it existing is important, right? It was
Yeah,
part
that
of the
is
World's
important,
Fair
yeah.
and brought over to Disneyland when it was over. So,
And then there was all that controversy about putting the princesses and the characters in the scenes, but that's not important.
no, I think Small World, again, not as much cast member interaction in that
Yeah.
one. So magical in the sense that it's part of nostalgia,
Right, it's very nostalgic.
but
You
not
can't-
in the sense that there's a story that the cast members are really participating in all that much.
Like, it's not my favorite ride, but I can't ever skip it. Like, I will not skip it. I will ride it.
Excellent. Any honorable mentions? Any ones that you feel just kind of they're really important to you that we haven't mentioned yet?
It's hard to mention like dark rides like Peter Pan and Winnie the Pooh because like they're dark rides, of course they're very detailed, but the ones that have a lot of cast member interaction, I think make really good ones. So like Jungle Cruise,
Haunted Mansion.
Haunted Mansion.
Those stand out. I
do
think when
stand
it
out.
comes to the cast members being a part of the story, Jungle Cruise, Haunted Mansion, maybe even to some degree, I don't know, what was I thinking about? Not maybe the Guardians ride. I'm not sure.
It's not very like cast member interactive, but like it's interactive.
Yeah.
Like it's, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
But I do think the dark rides are part of the magic. Again, more for nostalgia.
Yeah,
than
it's more
anything.
nostalgic than,
And of course, the
detail or
ride
anything.
tells a story. But most of those cues are not in California. They're not really immersive all that much.
No.
So if you had to make a list of maybe, we've mentioned a lot of things, and of course, our listeners are more than welcome to reach out to us with their ideas. But if we had to make a list of 5, we've mentioned a lot of different things. Which 5 do you think stand out above most in terms of the complete package, where it's great storytelling, thematic detail, attention to the little things, cast member involvement?
Okay,
What
so
would stand out to you?
on 5, I think I'm gonna have to put character meet and greets, which we didn't really talk about here, but not meet and greets where you're like waiting in line, you see your character, take a picture, but meet and greets where Cinderella is walking down Main Street and a 3-year-old goes booking it. That makes number 5.
Okay.
When your daughter sees Minnie Mouse for the first time and just books it straight over there.
Absolutely.
Number 5.
All right.
Definitely.
All right. That's what are your other 4?
Probably Jungle Cruise.
Okay.
On 4 because of the cast member interaction. Like the ride itself is kind of boring, but the skipper makes the ride.
All right.
So it's like, and then Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout because of the attention to detail. And then definitely Pirates on number 2 Because just Pirates is everything. It's everything. I love it. Favorite ride. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
And then on number 1, I think I'm going to have to put like the atmosphere in Disney. Like you don't have to be, like I don't have to be a teenager there. I can just be like 4.
Right.
I can go run towards princesses and no one's going to look at me weird.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's your 5. If I had to list 5 of the most magical attractions in Disneyland or Disney's California Adventures, I'm not going to put them in order, but my 5 would be, I think the one you mentioned at the very beginning would be on my list, Radiator Springs. I think that was done very, very well.
It was done well.
Radiator Springs would be 1. Pirates of the Caribbean, however you say it. I'm going to say Caribbean this week. Definitely be on my list. Pirates of the Caribbean. Main Street, which I mentioned at the beginning, just the whole Main Street piece itself.
Yeah.
Would be 1. Haunted Mansion. Haunted Mansion would probably be my number 1. If I had the of depth of theme and detail and cast member interactions, I think Haunted Mansion would be up there.
It's real good, yeah.
It'd be up there.
It made my list, but you only made me pick 5.
Right. And then, well, I had 5 too. And then my 5th one is one you just mentioned. I do think those sort of spontaneous character meeting moments, right? You know, I think there is, you know, whether you're young or old, there are opportunities there for a cast member or a character to really go out of their way to really draw you in to how wonderful and magical.
Like how you lost me in Disney World because I went running towards Cinderella.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we should have had you tethered that
We
day.
were in Disney World, not even Disneyland.
Yeah.
I could have run to God knows where.
Well.
And you could have never found me.
Well, you ran slow back then, so.
I had little legs.
You had small legs.
I still do have small legs. I just run faster now.
Well, there you go. Well, there you go. That's our discussion about the most magical attractions at Disneyland. And again, we would encourage our listeners, if you have a list of the things that you think make Disneyland so magical, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. So Mimi, once again, why don't you tell our listeners how they can find us online?
They can support us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, all at Disney Assembled. They can also send us an email with their own opinions on the show. But if you want to support us further, buy our t-shirts, masks, mugs, tpublic.com, Disney Assembled, or our Patreon page, $5 a month, Disney Assembled. We will start posting there, I promise.
Yeah, we're getting ready to put some patron-only content on our Patreon page. And so if you are so inclined to join us there, we would really appreciate it. Like Mimi said, it's only 1 tier. It's $5 a month. And we would really appreciate it if you'd be so kind to consider that. If not, no big deal. Just keep coming back for more of the podcast. This is what we love to do the most. And so we're happy to do that. So
that and watch soccer.
Well, and we do watch some soccer. So there we go.
Let it be known that the Dash won something today for the first time in the history of the club.
As Mimi and I are longtime supporters of the Houston Dash and the NWSL.
Regardless of how
and finally today, they finally won some hardware, winning the tournament. The NWSL
but that's not
Cup.
Disney. I just needed to mention that.
Yeah, congratulations to the Dash.
It's been a big day.
Yeah, congratulations to them. Well deserved. Good job. So, Mimi, great episode.
Yep.
Had a wonderful, had a lot of fun talking about Disneyland and all the magic that goes along with it. So I guess that'll do it for this week. And until next time, see you real soon.